This is a scene most households in Delhi witness every morning. Water scarcity, as Delhi faces it today, is one of the most menacing of problems that have befallen the city. With the natural reserves fast depleting, abundant supply of water is an inflated luxury for a vast majority of the capital's 15 million. Chronic water supply cuts are among the many things that taxpayers have come to live with. For the capital, not only is Yamuna the water provider, it is also the recipient of the city's sewage. To meet the city's water needs, the government of Delhi spends thousands of crores to obtain water from neighboring states, but improvement in the situation seems unlikely. For Delhi, the 2025 deadline of global water crisis might well be preponed. Delhi's semi-arid climate calls for sound water management systems, the finest examples of which can be cited in the medieval ages in the city. These systems included bowlies, hoses and wells to make water conveniently available.
There were the step wells, there were the traditional wells, and people built huge ponds. And you have Talab-e-Shamsi, which was built by Altamash. You have Haus Khas, built by Alauddin Khilji. Then he built an aqueduct from here to his capital Siri to supply it with water. If an entire population of a city could be supplied, it would have been a fairly large body. Inside Tughlaqabad, there were 6 or 7 bowlies. One can see traces of one even today. Within the depressions in the fort, rainwater used to collect. And one of them was supposed to have been large enough to meet the entire requirements of the army that was stationed inside the fort.
An intrinsic part of these water systems were numerous small watercourses or streams providing a natural drainage to the region. Preferred alternately as nalas or nadis, these streams were perennial clear water rivulets that augmented the city's water resources. References to the presence of these streams can be found in books and documents on the Sufis of Delhi and places of religious importance attached to them. The Delhi Gazetteer, a Government of India publication of the colonial era, refers to some of them as injuriously violent. Establishments in Delhi as late as the former half of the 20th century were made in quarters that fell between its two natural confines, Yamuna on the east and ridge on the west. The ridge, being an extension of the Aravalis in Rajasthan, was a heavily forested rocky land that provided a perfect watershed for rain showers. It was from here that these watercourses arose, dividing themselves between east and west. Evidences prove that these streams were perennial till as late as early part of the 19th century.
You see, these streams are similar to the rivers of South India, where rainwater is conserved by the forests and it's released to flow throughout the year after the monsoons. And during the monsoon, in any case, the natural rainwater flows through these drainage channels, which are the streams. But in the rest of the year, it is the forest cover which used to maintain them as permanent streams, even though the flow in some of them may not have been very great, but they were there. The flows were there throughout the year.
What made these streams perennial, supplying them water round the year, was the Delhi Ridge and its countless trees, the root hair of which held water. Whatever was surplus trickled through the soil, leading to the formation of streams with lasting supply of water.
The high water table used to generate groundwater which would seep out into the nalas. Okay, and that was another reason why they were perennial.
These streams carried off excess rainwater from the city, thereby preventing flooding, and also augmented the waters of the Yamuna by draining directly into it. It was on their way to the Yamuna that these streams were tapped for their usefulness by the city dwellers. A map by an English cartographer dated 1807 depicts clearly the course of the two major water systems that had existed till then, and also that of numerous small streams that supplemented these. Of the two major water systems, the first was the South Delhi drainage system, at times referred to as the Barapula system. Around 10 streams emerged from the southern ridge. These traversed past areas like Khirki, Chirag Dilli, and further up on one hand, and modern-day JNU and Vasant Kunj on the other. Close to Nizamuddin, they joined another stream coming from the central ridge, often called the Kushak Nala. Together, these went past Nizamuddin, where stood Barapula, or the bridge with 12 arches. Downstream of Barapula, this system finally outfell into the Yamuna. The second system of streams lay to the west of the ridge. The main watercourse of this system was the Sahibi Nadi, which came to Delhi by way of modern-day Alwar in Rajasthan and Gurgaon in Haryana, and finally drained into the Yamuna. Another significant water body of this system was the Najafgarh Jheel, a natural depression that collected the waters draining off the west slope of the ridge. Tectonic movements interrupted the flow of the Sahibi into the Yamuna, and the water hence collected went to the Najafgarh Jheel. In 1938, the Najafgarh Jheel was dredged, and the resultant of this task was the Najafgarh Nala. If these streams were to flow in their natural form today, the areas they would supply with water would be, as can be seen on this map. Interestingly, these are the very areas of the capital that are facing pressing water shortages today. Accounts of the past lead us to believe that these streams played an important role in the ecology as well as the culture of the region.
If you follow most of these streams, you would see that a large number of the urban villages of Delhi are located around these streams. They were streams on which people depended, not only for drinking purposes or daily use. Many of these streams were invested with miraculous powers. People who went to the shrine of Chirag Delhi used to take virtually a holy dip in this stream, and that water was sold to women who did not have children. If you go and see the Satpula, till the 20s, peasants used to draw water from this for irrigating their fields. So this must have been a stream which had a fairly large body of water flowing through it, that it could be tapped and,
In addition to this, the streams were integral to the ecology of the region. These channels provided the city a natural drainage system, one that helped the townsfolk make use of what was needed of the downpours and to get rid of the rest, thereby preventing floods. Since the streams made their way through natural channels, the water easily seeped through the subsoil. This led to recharge of groundwater aquifers, which in turn provided water to the city round the year by means of wells and bawlis. The land too kept fertile, which gave an impetus to agricultural activities. Not only did these streams supplement the water resources of the city, they augmented the flow of the river with the fresh waters they carried. Quite predictably, these streams were an excellent breeding ground for biodiversity. As a result, the banks of these watercourses were scenic retreats for callers like the princes after whom the Sahibi Nadi got its name. Today, neither is the Sahibi Nadi called Sahibi, nor is it the Nadi that it once was. It is now the very famous Najafgarh Nala. Like the numerous other watercourses, that once fed the city, it has turned into a despicable drain. Housed gracefully in the city once, these watercourses were butchered by the first whiff of development.
What has happened is that all those water bodies which used to irrigate a fair amount of area, they have completely vanished. So from 60s, 70s, 80s, the trends have been accelerating. So if in earlier years there was a decline of a particular amount, now it is much more than that.
Today, most of us pass these drains by, even without the realization that these very courses were once a source of perennial joy to the city that has played a benign host to multitudes, but has been the most negligent guardian. The year 1957 saw the formation of the Delhi Development Authority with the objective of planning of the city. Incidentally, it is in this very period that we first hear of the eventual decline of these streams.
It's only in the beginning of the 20th century when the city was being expanded and more activity. A band was created south of scenic farms to prevent the flood waters from the Tirupati range coming down, which I thought was unfortunate. There was other ways of containing the rainwater and conserving the rainwater and letting the stream flow.
A number of factors contributed to this. The growing population pressure on the city to begin with. Post-partition era saw heavy influx of newcomers into the city. This put pressure on the existing resources on one hand and led to their decline on the other. We hear, for instance, of the sewage of the rehabilitated colonies going directly into Najafgarh Nala. The water of this Nala, used for drinking till as late as the 1920s, was rendered unsuitable and dumped into the Yamuna only 100 meters away from the point from where the drinking water supplies of the city were taken. To accommodate the increasing population pressure, the need for more and more land was felt. For this, Delhi's green areas, including the ridge, were cut. The space of deforestation left no chance for the streams to get regular supplies of water. Constructions came up instead and in disturbing numbers. Stripping of the ridge continued for the purpose of mining and quarrying. This was banned by the Supreme Court only in the 1990s. By the time, the damage had already been done. The obsession for concretization drove our planners and engineers to overlook the importance of natural drainage. Pakka nalas took place of old rivulets, leading to increasingly less recharge of groundwaters in turn. With the hunger for space still not satisfied, large-scale dumping and encroachments of these watercourses continued. Constructions were made inside, some even right on top of these channels. All right under the nose of the authorities that were once constituted to carry out a balanced planning of the city. Old water systems, which were closely linked to the streams, were systematically destroyed by alienating people from them. With no one left to voice concern about this, the system sustainer streams have been marginalized in due course. Being wiped out of public memory is perhaps the worst that could have befallen these streams. Quite fittingly called Ganda Nalas today, the Sahibi and other watercourses are open lavatories carrying the city's sewage and garbage. Having transmuted from natural drainage to pollution proliferating systems, these are breeding ground of diseases of the worst order.
Now what is happening is that nalas are carrying sewage and the sewage is percolating through the nalas into the aquifer, right, into the water table, and it is deteriorating the quality of groundwater.
The Barapula and the Najafgarh drains outpour 412.5 million litres of wastewater into the Yamuna per day. These two are among the largest of the 17 drains outfalling into the Yamuna. The Najafgarh drain has been identified by the Central Pollution Control Board as one of the 12 leading pollution menace areas in India. The Chiragdili Nala, waters of which were once looked upon as miraculous, is now a distressing sight.
Now, because the natural systems were no longer perceived to be of any use, they were neglected, not only by the government but also by the people.
The journey from clear streams to Ganda Nalas has not been too long. It has certainly been very humiliating. What has been done unto them in a time span of about a century is shocking. If this neglect on our part continues, we would perhaps be telling the future generations of the one-time river Yamuna that might just be the biggest drain falling into the Ganges. While foresight is an indicator of prudence, hindsight is its very cradle. Reflecting on the past with the idea of refinement is an idea that is worth much. The manner in which the decline of these streams from water providers to wastewater carriers has come about leaves many questions to be answered. What if these streams had existed today?
If the streams had been kept in place and protected, nurtured, husbanded properly, then there would probably have been no water problem, because groundwater would have been in ample supply. And don't forget that with these streams flowing, we could also have check dams and create local pools of water, reservoirs and pools of water, which would give additional surface water as well as areas for recreation.
If these streams had water, if they could be revived somehow, at least the problem could be reduced to some extent.
Too much reliance on technology cannot always solve situations. Delhi cannot milk other places of their resources. We must learn to get going with what we have. See, all these solutions which are talked about, these are supply side solutions. Get more, right? What about managing the demand, right? What about managing the resource? What about augmenting the resource right here?
If these streams had existed today, perhaps the pressing water scarcity in Delhi would not have been as pressing as to force her into begging at the doorstep of her neighbors. Books like Homicide by Pesticide would not have been written about the Yamuna, which might have had more of water than pollutants. It would have been possible for old water systems to be intact, as would people's association with them. A little timely wisdom in planning and management could have ensured wiser use of the taxpayers' money. And had the streams existed as streams today, perhaps this movie would not have been titled Once Upon a Time.